You're listening to the Phillip Jordan Show, talking SEC football and beyond. Woo!
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show. I am your host, Phillip Jordan, from Last Word on College Football, 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I am the in-studio host and producer of Dothan Woods Football. Welcome into the Tuesday edition of the show. We got a fun show planned for you guys in just a few moments. I am going to be joined by Blake Ruffino. He is the host of the Are You Serious Sports Network, also part of the Believe Podcast Network. We're going to talk all things LSU football. We will talk Brian Kelly. What is Blake's thoughts on Brian Kelly so far from when he was hired to now as going through fall camp? We will talk about the latest with John Emery, running back for LSU. We'll look at the quarterback battle, the wide receivers, defense, especially with the defensive front, and reasonable expectations for the LSU Tigers for the upcoming season. We're right here at it. Their opponent is playing this Saturday, Florida State Seminoles, and then the next week, LSU and Florida State will play. So it's a really fun conversation with Blake coming up. And then after that, we'll go over some football news going on this Tuesday. Anyways, before we do that, though, let you guys know you can find me in the podcast. You can find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart. Wherever you get your podcast, you can get the Phillip Jordan Show there. You check out the show over on YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all the notifications, and leave a comment on a video. I will read that on a future edition as well. And as you can tell, if you're checking out on YouTube, there's not really a video element for today. That will be pretty much for this week. Getting some stuff situated for my video setup, kind of upgrading that. So in the meantime, the podcast will pretty much go back to just being an audio only format, but we'll be putting up something on the YouTube page to keep that going as well. And also, remember, you can always email me at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's go with our featured guest here on today's Phillip Jordan Show. Everybody joining me first on today's show is Blake Ruffino. You can check him out on his show, Are You Serious Sports Network, which you can check him out live 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time on YouTube, Facebook, all over the place. And, of course, he has a podcast as well. And, Blake, I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Glad to have you on talk LSU football, which we're getting closer and closer to the season. I know week 0 is coming up this Saturday. Will you be catching any of week 0? Will you be watching any of that, or are you just going to wait till all the really big games come up the next week?
Nope. If they got real live college football and it's worth a darn, I'm going to be watching it. So fired up for this Friday as high school football kicks off, and or at least some places, and then Saturday at 5 o'clock, I'll be glued to my TV watching Florida State get in the field about what they look like for LSU in a couple week after that.
Oh, absolutely. I hear you on that. I do high school football. I'm a producer of high school football games. We got kicked off this past Friday, so it's best time of the year. And, of course, with LSU, I'm very intrigued with this team because I'm very excited to see what Brian Kelly can do here. I think he is in the tops in the SEC already. He's one of the best pure coaches in this league. Just when you look at Brian Kelly, just from what he's done from the time he's hired to now as they're going through fall camp, they've had 3 scrimmages so far. What's been your big takeaway with Brian Kelly?
I think just as holistically as a staff, how well they've done with Jayden Daniels throwing the football. You know, Jayden wasn't bad at throwing the football and got kind of a little bit of a bad rap really in doing so. I just think that attention to detail, everything that you hear about him outside of him just being constantly a jerk, which isn't really true, has kind of come to fruition. I think he's a great X's and O's coach. I think he knows what buttons to push to get the most out of his players, a lot more discipline under Coach Kelly versus what there was under Orgeron. And look, that's not a shot at Orgeron. It's just the truth. So look, I mean, I think that he's done so far so good. So far so good. but it doesn't mean anything unless you hit the field and you start winning games. So I'm interested to see, as well as everybody else, how he does. You know, he's gotten a lot of criticism over the last seven or 8 months. You know, the dancing videos and all this kind of stuff happening. So I think more than anybody, he's just as excited to get on the field more than maybe even the fans are after, you know, taking all the stuff on social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's, for me, I don't know how you feel about it, but there's a portion of SEC fans that look at that, then they look, oh, well, look what happened when he played Alabama, when he played Clemson. I'm like, okay, that's well and good, and what he did at Notre Dame was phenomenal, winning consistently with what, I don't want to say lack of talent, but obviously he's going to have more talent at LSU. That's what's, for me, it's like this guy has everything set up. You know, if way he can coach, and now he gets to better players. I mean, I think he's set up to be a national championship winning coach at LSU.
Well, as the saying goes, if Orgeron and Les Miles can win one, and look, you know, Les got the two of them. Let's see what a guy like Brian Kelly can do. You know, obviously it starts in recruiting. He's got to bring some guys in here, and he's doing that. I mean, they're going to probably finish with a top 5 class. And so if he consistently does that, I think that he will have the talent that is better than what he had at Notre Dame. I do know that a lot of people don't like hearing that, and that's understandable, especially obviously if you're a Notre Dame fan. But, you know, Brian Kelly has committed in this class right now the 2 highest recruits at wide receiver that he's ever had, ever. One of them is from his own state. So I think there's a part and there's something that goes along here with recruiting in Louisiana and what he was able to do, what he wasn't able to do. And now that you see that Notre Dame is kind of hitting, I don't want to say they're hitting a wall, but they're you know, they just had a big decommitment. There's talk that there could be others. So I guess my question is if Brian Kelly does finish his class higher than Notre Dame, was he vindicated in what he said? I think he will be. And, you know, they've done a really good job there, and that's where it starts. So I think this season's goal is just to get LSU back on the winning track and then continue to build highly through recruiting in the transfer portal.
You know, and so news obviously hit over the weekend with running back John Emery, and that it's just weird. I mean, he's already was suspended a year, and then you're gonna put 2 more games on him. What's your whole take? What's coming out of LSU about that whole situation?
Yeah, I've been pretty vocal about this. I think Mark Emmert, although he's set to resign next year, should resign right now. You know, they told John Emery that he was suspended for a full year, and then now they're saying that a full year is not 12 games, even though their bylaws say it's 12 games. Now they're saying he's suspended for 15 games. You know, I would understand. I would really, really, really understand if he was out here failing classes and that was the reason why he was suspended. But that's not what's going on. What's going on, for people who don't know, is he dropped a class during COVID because his stepfather, who has raised him and been part of his life for a long time, was on a ventilator. Okay? And I don't know about you guys, but if my father, mother, significant other was on a ventilator, I would probably have issues too. Now, it's not an excuse, and he should have known better than to drop a class and not be a full-time student. So when he dropped a class and did not remain a full-time student, that's what hit him. And I don't think that someone who's in right academic standards with the university, right standards, or right in the coach's eyes or the football program's eyes, the athletic department's eyes, should be penalized. You know, the NCAA is not should not be the end-all, be-all for academics. Now, if you have a situation like North Carolina, you're there to investigate it. But how can a young man be okay with the university and have the right amount of hours, and yet we come back and we sit here and say, you know what, young man, we know that one player at Texas A&M got caught with guns, stolen guns, a failure to appear in court, drugs and drug possession inside his own pocket at the time of the arrest, he's not going to get suspended because it's due process, even though there's video footage of it and dash cam video. What we're going to do is because your family was going through COVID and we try to cancel a season, we're going to hurt you more than we're going to hurt somebody else. Now, I don't know about you guys or anybody that will listen to this podcast. That doesn't make sense to me. So what kind of precedent are we setting? It's more okay to get arrested with drugs and guns and not get suspended versus John Emery, who dropped the class when his stepfather was on a ventilator.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, that's priorities are messed up there for one, I think. And then the NCAA, I've never been a fan. I feel like they've kind of always been a joke. Just to sit back and do what they do. So, and now you're hurting them. I mean, like you said, he's in good academic standing with the school. I mean, that should, in my opinion, that should trump over what the NCAA thinks. But you know, who am I?
Well, I tell you, the NCAA is a joke, and they could have handled this transfer portal situation better. They didn't have there's not a lot that they could do in reference to NIL. But they could have put guardrails up. Just because the federal court says something, okay, so let me give an example. Okay, you can't prohibit someone from making money on their name, image, and likeness. Sounds good. But then you come out with recruiting guidelines, and we have video footage of a Texas A&M coach, not a recruiting coordinator or anything like that, a position coach that went viral on Twitter, illegally recruiting and saying that the people that are in those suites and boxes are the ones that are paying you all the money to come here. And yet, again, the NCAA makes a ruling on John Emery before they make a ruling on Jimbo Fisher. You got to make it make sense. I am not a defender of Will Wade, LSU's ex-basketball coach, but the one thing I will defend him on, and probably the only thing I will defend him on, is why did his investigation take 4 years? There's different standards for different things. And it's crazy to me that we have different standards for coaches, universities, and players. So to me, as a normal human being, it doesn't feel right that Will Wade gets to extort money and bribe people, and we don't know the ruling yet, okay? And Anaya Smith at Texas A&M gets to come in here and do what we talked about earlier, and nothing happened. But yet John Emery is the one that's facing a 15-game suspension. And there are moments in sports where things need to be clipped, and I hope you guys do this. Make this make sense to me. Because at the end of the day, if you come here with John Emery and you're using him as the poster child of the power of the NCAA, then shame on Mark Emmert. Not only should he be fired on the spot, he should be sued for incompetence, and he should – I don't even know what else you could do to him. But he deserves everything coming to him. Because even if he's not the one making the final judgment and hitting the gavel on the on the desk, he's over all of this. Shame on him.
And then, look at TV, you mentioned, with Jayden Daniels earlier when we were talking about Brian Kelly, and I know you've been there, you've been able to see this team, with the scrimmage and the practice, stuff like that. What's been the big thing for you that's really stood out with him and Garrett Nussmeier?
I just think consistency, a high array of consistency. A lot of people try to label him as a bad passer, but, and look, he's missed passes, okay? I mean, he's not perfect, and he's going to miss passes. But he was a 62% completion percentage guy, and he had a horrible team around him. He didn't have a position coach. His offensive coordinator has never coached quarterbacks before, and Herb Edwards has never coached offensive day in his life. So there are parts of me that thinks that with the right coaching, he has become a lot better, and which has happened. I think that he's moving the offense very well, and there could be a concern to this on the other side of things. But over the last 12 drives, Jayden Daniels has been a part of scoring 4 touchdowns, and Garrett Nussmeier has 4 touchdowns. And we've been there to see him. So it's not like it's something that, this is just rumors out of camp. No, we've been there to see him. So I think that you have 2 young men in Garrett Nussmeier and Jayden Daniels. Quite honestly, it's like the old Michael Jordan commercial. Anything you can do, I can do better. And that's how both of those young men have been doing this entire fall camp. One would score, the other would come down and do it too. It's been pretty remarkable to see. And I've just been telling LSU fans, my own personal opinion is, it really doesn't bother me which young man runs out there. I think both of them are going to play, and they're going to play a lot this season.
Of course, with the receiving core, I mean, all the attention, Kayshon Boutte, which, obviously he has earned that attention. He is one of the best receivers in college football. From what you've seen, who's really who's the guy? Who are the receivers around them has really been stepping up? You've seen?
Yeah, I think Malik Neighbors is a guy not only for LSU, not only for the SEC, but nationally people need to know. He's been unguardable. And, when you try to double Kayshon, it leaves these other elite LSU wide receivers wide open. And Malik Neighbors has been that guy. And really and truthfully, Louisiana never has to worry about receivers, and we know that. And this is another one of those groups. I think that you could run 8, 9 guys out there and feel fully confident that they can go out there and make plays for you. And I think with the right coaching, unlike what LSU had a season ago, when you get those young men out in space, that can be dangerous. Look what happened in 19. Look what's happened in the past. People only talk about 19, but I'm old enough to remember Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. I'm old enough to remember Demetrius Byrd. I'm old enough to remember Brandon LaFell and others, Terrence Tolliver. LSU has produced a lot of great receivers, and that doesn't stop here.
Yeah, I'll remember those. I'll remember those with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, Zach Mettenberger at quarterback. I'm like, man, Les Miles, what were you doing? You had those guys on the roster at one time and could win a national title with those guys. But the defense, on the defensive side of the ball, new defensive coordinator, Matt House, and I was seeing some comments he made. He seemed like he really loves his front four. B.J. Ojulari, I know he's a really good player. Ollie Gay, that's another one. I know injuries last year kind of held him back, but he's a guy with a lot of potential. But just this defense, especially that defensive front, what's your thoughts on these guys, and where do you think this defense can go for LSU?
Yeah, so I think that they've struggled here of late, in season and out. At least again from what we've been able to see. The front four has got to be the strongest part of this team because, you're breaking in 5 new offensive linemen into this team. You have a new quarterback. You have new running backs. You have new receivers outside of Kayshon that are really going to have to see playing time. They're going to have to be the strength, and they're going to have to pick it up because over the last 3 scrimmages that we've seen or full practices that we've seen, they haven't won those battles. And it's not just with Jayden. It's been with Garrett Nussmeier too. Look, you can't take everything out of fall camp as gospel because they can come out here against Florida State and really dominate. But they got to be more consistent. They got to finish games. They came out in the spring and they were dominating that spring game, but they didn't finish. They got to learn how to finish. And if they can put it all together, this unit can be absolutely deadly.
Just with everything else you've seen with fall camp, with the scrimmages, everything you have been able to see, what has been something else that's really stuck out to you the most with this LSU team?
I think they're big, man. They're really big up on both lines of scrimmage. They're really fast on the perimeter. Really and truthfully, I mean, it looks on paper as a typical LSU team. right? They're big, they're fast, they're physical. They just got to put it all together. And if they can do that, this team could be dangerous. And I'm not saying national title, but a 9-win team when you are a 6-win team with the schedule that they have, I think is a huge success. So they look the part. The question is going to be, can they finish? Can they do everything that they can to win out? And, you know, we saw a season ago when Orgeron let his hands out of the defense, LSU held Alabama to 6 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
They have the talent to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the team. You answered my last question. I usually ask reasonable expectations, but you threw the 9 games out there. I mean, would you say – I guess I will ask the question, though. For this upcoming season, for LSU fans listening to this and always ask these questions on these previews, what are reasonable expectations for LSU this season?
Well, I think reasonable expectations is 8 wins. I think anything less than that, you have to do some soul searching. Because Brian Kelly should be able to him own should be able to give you 2 wins from what you got a season ago. I think that's realistic. But they have the potential to do more. And if the potential meets the expectation, then this team can give teams that nobody's talking about, they can give those teams a run for their money. You know, let me ask you this question. Does LSU have more talent on the perimeter and on the front line than Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they have it more than Auburn? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have it more than Tennessee? Yes. Do they have it more than Ole Miss? Yes. Do they have it more than State, Florida State, and other teams on this schedule? Yes. So the bottom line is, if the talent can get around and they can get over this hump, on paper, they are more talented than the teams that they are facing. But talent alone doesn't win you games. They're going to have to scheme things up, and I think Brian Kelly can do that. So I'm sitting around the 8 wins. Obviously, we don't know who the starting quarterback is yet. We have a good idea. But you don't have a starting quarterback yet. And so let's see how all of this transpires. And if we, at the end of the season, if you say 8 wins, I'm okay with it. But I see them to have the potential for so much more if they put it all together.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they got the talent. I mean, they're more talented than a lot of the teams in the SEC. So it's going to be a fun team to watch this season. And, Blake, this has been fun having you on the show today. If everybody out there, they want to check out your show, Are You Serious Sports Network, where can they find it and where can they follow you?
Yep, AYS Sports, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. Like, subscribe if you listen to the audio podcast. Rate and review there as well. Are You Serious Sports? If you're an LSU fan or just a fan, go to our premium message board, ayssnetwork.com/forum. During the John Emery thing, before the news broke, we were talking about and we had given the information that what we had at the moment and the time inside the forum. And it's just really fun. We cut up a lot in there. It's a good time to be there. So that's where you can catch us. Monday through Thursday, 7 o'clock is when we start. We'll be picking up our SEC morning show along with our post-game show. So really excited with our good partners over at Believe and TuneIn and XN to be launching this SEC stuff. So it's going to be really, really fun within the next couple of weeks, especially starting this Saturday with our college football preview.
All right. Sounds good. Everybody go check it out. And, Blake, I once again appreciate the time and hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks again to Blake Ruffino for coming on the show. And please go check out his show, Are You Serious Sports, AYS. And go check him out. Does a really good job breaking all things down, LSU, college football, all good stuff. So go check Blake out and the great work he is doing. Now let's check out some football headlines as we close up the show. In college football, Hooters Restaurant announced on Monday it had agreed to NIL deals with dozens of offensive alignment around the country. Teams included Texas A&M, Auburn, Miami, LSU, and Oklahoma, and was going to read to you a statement made by somebody with Hooters. Key that up real quick. For decades, the physical play, blue-collar mentality, and on-field leadership of the offensive lineman has shined, but national praise and attention for these crucial players has all too often been sidelined. We want to change the narrative and celebrate these elite student athletes who play a pivotal role in making college football so thrilling and give them their fair share of the spotlight. Hooters Chief Marketing Officer Bruce Scala said in release. And that's true. There's been some NIL deals for offensive line. We've seen it. But it's not enough. The offensive line they are the key to offense. I don't care how good your quarterback is, how good your running back is, how good your receivers are, your tight ends, whatever. If you don't have a good offensive line, you're going to struggle. All forms of football, high school, college, and pro. So I enjoy this. I'm glad to see the offensive linemen getting their love here and getting that attention that they deserve. So Oregon initiated a low-level preliminary discussion with the Big Ten on whether the Ducks were compatible. This is per Brett McMurphy of the Action Network. This didn't include Oregon President Michael Scheer, AD Rob Mullins, or Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren. Look, we just saw the money the Big Ten just is getting from Fox, CBS, and NBC for the TV deal. And when USC and UCLA announced they were coming to the Big Ten, they were saying, okay, what's the next domino to fall? And Oregon was thought to be one, them along with Washington. And that never materialized. But obviously they were interested in what the Big Ten was doing. Obviously they knew they were about to get a big new TV deal, media rights deal. So they wanted to join up with them. So it makes perfect sense that they would put out some feelers out there. Obviously this was probably low-level people, probably some boosters, people with money within the program that did this. Obviously, it wasn't the president or the athletic director. But it's going to be interesting what happens with Oregon going forward. I don't know. Are they not now a fit for the Big Ten? Will they end up in the Big 12? That's an intriguing thing. Look, I've said it, and I'll say it here again. I don't think the Pac-12 survives all this. I think they will cease to exist as a conference eventually. Maybe not right now. I just don't see them surviving realignment the way it's going. So Oregon, obviously, I think is seeing that and saying, okay, we need to make a move, and then we need to see what's going on here. But obviously that didn't happen. But it will be interesting to pay attention to what does happen with Oregon moving forward. North Carolina announced they have their new quarterback in Drake May, who will start the opener for North Carolina against Florida A&M. Obviously replacing Sam Howell. Big shoes to fill here. Very interesting here. See how he does in their season opener. Now we're going to jump to a couple NFL headlines. Carolina names Baker Mayfield their new starting quarterback. No shocker here. Unfortunate what happened with Matt Corral over the weekend getting injured. He is out for the year. And then Sam Darnold, I don't think you could roll with Sam Darnold again. I don't think they were going to roll with Sam Darnold again. So, but we shall see how this goes for Baker Mayfield. A couple weeks ago, when I had Trey Downing on the show, he thinks Carolina could maybe push for one of those playoff spots. And I really would think about it, it could happen because the NFC is not great. Once you get past the Buccaneers, the Rams, and the Packers, there's a big dip. Those are the three Super Bowl contenders in my mind. Now, he mentioned the Cardinals. I'm not there. I'm not there on Kyler Murray. I'm just not there on that whole team. I just don't think they're going to be able to reach that level. I think they'll fall apart toward the end of the year again, like they did this past year. But we'll see. But we'll see. Baker Mayfield plays well. Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. This team probably could flirt with 8 or 9 wins and get to the playoffs. New York Giant rookie Kayvon Thibodeau will be out 3 to 4 weeks. He sprained his MCL in the preseason game against the Bengals. Giants have bad luck with these guys they draft in the first round. Daniel Jones has had a few injury problems, and he just hasn't been good. And then Saquon Barkley, know what he has at running back. I mean, he's a super talent, but he can't stay on the field either. So just continuing the bad luck for the New York Giants. And guys, I think that's going to do it. Great show, I think. A fun show this week. A new guest. So someone I have never had on the show before. Glad to have Blake come on and be intrigued with LSU. I do think LSU could be a good team. 8-9 wins, I think, is possible for this team, especially if Jayden Daniels really does show the development. He said, remember, Jayden Daniels was good his first year at Arizona State. He had a couple receivers that ended up in the NFL. He lost talent that was around him. So he's going to have talent again around him at LSU. So he could be very good. I like what I saw to Garrett Nussmeier in the spring game. Defensively, we know LSU's got talent, just getting that talent to come together. They do have a lot of transfers coming in the secondary. Up front, they should be really good. But the secondary, I do have my concerns about with LSU. But I do not have concerns with Brian Kelly. And I'm going to stand by what I said before. I believe he is the third best coach in the SEC right now, behind Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. Well, anyways, guys, that's going to do it. Be back tomorrow. John Vogel will be talking SEC draft prospects going into the season, who he's looking at, what he wants to see as some players in the SEC when it comes to NFL draft stuff. And then we'll have an NFL show on Thursday. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you checking out the podcast today. And until next time, bye-bye.